Hello. It's been a while since my last Chronicles stream. Um, Mainly because of, well, a mixture of things really. So, uh, anyway, I'm gonna continue playing. Um, yeah. It seems like it's off to a decent start. I feel like last time I did maybe react a little bit too strongly to the fact that there aren't any new characters, and like, I don't know. I felt like things are the same, but I don't really feel like that's a good enough reason to complain. At least yet. Maybe if it's just the same characters for like most of the cases in the game, maybe, but for chapter 1 it's actually like makes perfect sense, right? Um, anyway, I'm gonna lock my door. I am no longer alone in this place, so I may get whisked off randomly at some point. But anyway, let's play the video game. I'm gonna have to remember voices again. Oh man. Alright, so yeah, we just made our first objection. Let's read some text. And we eventually had to come to this bad argument that pulling the blade out was an act of compassion, which it obviously wasn't. So now we're going to have that explained to us, and we're going to be in a corner again. Pulling a blade from a... no. Pulling a blade from a wound without thinking could cause heavy bleeding. It's basic knowledge that any medical research assistant with an ounce of sense ought to know. In other words, there's no good reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife from the victim. Do not forget that the young student did have a motive for killing the victim. The man the victim murdered 9 months ago, Dr. Wilson, was the defendant's highly respected mentor. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in this testimony anywhere. If I knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it.
Ryutaro, it's times like this when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals.
The fundamentals?
Evidence is what counts in the courtroom, isn't it?
Of course, but I've been through the court record dozens of times already.
I think perhaps you're forgetting something, though. You needn't take the evidence at face value. And you can and must examine it in greater detail, too.
Ah!
I realize this is your first time playing the role of a lawyer in the courtroom. So if you need a reminding of the rudiments, you need only ask. I'll do my very best to help.
Examine the evidence in the court record. It's an idea, certainly. What should I do? Come to think of it, Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san were always turning evidence over and over in their hands. Yes, I need to examine things in greater detail with space.
Ah, by the look in your eyes, I see it is coming back to you. Go through the court record again and have a thorough look at everything. You may just find a clue.
Yes, I'll do it straight away. I already read this. Single stab wound, that was the first objection. Pupil constriction, maybe? This is just a photo. We've looked this over like 10 times. Oh, this has a back to it. Miraculous English attorneys tell all. This is the interview with you and Soseki-san, isn't it, father? It looks as though it was quite an exchange.
Yes, he became a little over-animated when you were talking about his time in England. The photographer managed to capture this moment. His hand karate chopped me on the neck.
I do hope you weren't hurt. Bikes. That's the carnival. What's on the back? This is the newspaper for Soseki-san.
There seems to be an important article on the back page as well. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Umai Medical Research Laboratory.
Real murder method, maybe?
From Umai's Medical Research. Father, isn't that your lab? What the? Let me see that. The poison's been stolen. It's this morning's paper that Soseki-san gave us. Are you saying you didn't know? As embarrassing as that is for the head of the laboratory, I didn't. I've not heard any such thing. Where on earth could the reporter have gleaned this information? Come to think of it, there was no article mentioning this story in our paper this morning, was there?
Maybe it's the reporter that's standing behind Soseki.
It's a highly toxic poison that we've been working on in the strictest confidence. I'd put Rai in charge of the project. Rai? She was managing it? If what's written here is true, it means that she tried to hide the theft from me. And moreover, details were leaked somehow.
No, I think the reporter robbed it and then wrote an article about his own robbery.
I don't believe it. You need to read this article very carefully. Fountain pen. Rai Membani. There's some sort of emblem here, look. But isn't it a Umai? It isn't a Umai University one. Must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. A newspaper, but it would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Rai.
The reporter's initials. I feel like the reporter's going to be the killer.
If we take off the pen's lid...
Maybe she was withdrawing the pen? The defendant. It doesn't have blood on it.
Now let's unscrew the barrel, shall we?
It's a knife. Right? Gonna be a knife?
This must be the little reservoir that holds the ink. Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from the bottle up through the nib. Is something wrong, Father? Just that there doesn't actually appear to be any ink in there, that's all. Oh yes, you're right. It's pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose.
Okay. We've already done the nib. And we've already done... Oh, we haven't done the initials.
The RM initials are very clearly engraved here. And the fact Miss Brett was clinging to this pen in her dying moments is clearly a message too. To identify her killer, you mean? I don't think there can be any doubt that this is a key piece of evidence in this case.
Oh, wait, yeah. Let me see if that logo is on the newspaper. I feel like that would be a bit too easy. I mean, no.
Running a lecture at Umai by Soseki Natsume.
After his lecture? Okay, it totally is the reporter. Poison-laced blade. Maybe she withdrew the pen, and then the killer, the reporter, then stabbed the victim again post-mortem later. Breathing. Yes, proof. We've got the proof there. Entirely new synthesis of alkaloids. Rumored to be commissioned by the military. Okay. Well, I know what to do anyway. Yes, I'll do it straight away. I don't know if I can be bothered to press this guy. This is hopeless. I can't find a single crack in his testimony anywhere. If I knew that withdrawing the knife from the wound would threaten Miss Brett's life further, I just can't think of any way to explain why she did it.
Ryutaro, it's at times like these when it's especially important to remember the fundamentals.
Oh, I've already read this.
Hold it!
Hold it! You say doing it without thinking could be a problem. Does that mean if you use due care and attention, it would be alright? I wouldn't have thought it needed spelling out, really, but the blade is like a stopper in the wound. Remove it, and a serious hemorrhage will occur. In other words, a medic would need to be present before any attempt was made to withdraw the blade. Doing it without thinking would be madness. You just can't do it. Oh, well, thank you for such a thorough explanation. You see, Counsel, when you act without thinking, the result is a bloodbath. Ugh.
Back to the witness testimony, please.
Am I being too quiet? Let me check my volume and stuff.
Back to the witness testimony, please.
That's all fine. And check that the stream is running okay. Yeah. Hold it! In that case, there's an obvious explanation here. Which is... clearly, the defendant, Rai Membani-san, does not possess an ounce of sense. You think about that, Professor Mikotoba?
I'm not sure that you should be labeling your best friend as lacking in common sense.
Well, I thought it would be better than labeling her as a murderer. I don't know. Young people today. If that's friendship, I don't understand it.
Careful, Counsel. A lack of common sense can be a very dangerous thing.
Oh dear, that recoiled on me rather badly.
That's life, I'm afraid. A lesson everyone must learn.
Hopefully you can see now that it really is basic medical knowledge. Being involved in the medical research, Membami-san would certainly have been aware of it. Hold it! But the defendant has suddenly encountered somebody she knew lying on the ground, bleeding to death. The sight could have shocked her delicate sensibilities, causing her to remove the blade inadvertently. I really don't think inadvertent actions can explain this. The woman is a medical research assistant, and I can't imagine she would behave so irrationally. Oh, but irrational behavior is a woman's prerogative, isn't it? Oh dear, you have a lot to learn about women. Only a small-minded man could have such a bigoted view. Oh dear, perhaps I'm letting my male persona take hold a little too much. Well, I have managed to convey the basics now. Have I managed to convey the basics now? That should cover the medical side of the argument. Okay, it's going to be the non-medical side that we have a problem with.
Hold it!
Hold it! Whatever the motive, it just isn't in whatever the motive, it just isn't in Membami-san's nature to do something so awful. She had both motive and opportunity. It was very hard to argue against. But you don't know the defendant.
Objection!
Objection! And you, counsel, do not appear to know the law. Yes, some evidence is the only way to convince the court of your argument, not feelings. With this fledgling,
A fledgling to defend her? I would almost say I pity the accused. So do I. Inspector, you will reiterate your point about the defendant's motive, please.
Oh, yes, Miss Brett was in many ways the sworn enemy of Membami-san. And then, hold it! He's gonna say something about the fact that it was a stab wound, isn't he?
Well, yes, that's true. Dr. Wilson recognized Membami-san's talent and offered her the position of assistant, despite her being a woman. She was extremely grateful to him.
Yes, the Englishman appears to have been a very broad-minded individual.
Dr. Wilson had no time for outdated traditions. He met with opposition, of course, but he believed firmly in Membami-san's abilities.
Clearly, the defendant was in the man's debt, which only serves to prove my point.
This is hopeless.
I have examined everything, right? Okay. I've examined this in full, right? I think so, at least. Nothing on the top, nothing on the bottom. Fuck me. I bet this pen was used as a needle. But that's the only logical way forward, right? Is changing the murder weapon. And the stab wound also disguised the fact that it was a poisoning. I mean, they were talking about examining evidence, but the only two that can be examined are these two. And I've just went through this, and it's not that, so maybe there is something else in the newspaper? Maybe on the inside. Is this article about how to grow that silly little bit of hair that he has? No, I can't turn the page. That's a shame. That's it, that's all I've got.
Hold it!
It's this because it's not the knife. I don't know. Hmm. I just haven't got anything to go off. You know what, I'm gonna double press everything.
Hold it!
There's no way that the second testimony is that hard, but I'm not spotting anything that's super obvious. Maybe I'm just bad. Oh, shit.
Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Attention!
Yes, Father, Spartan guidance is what I need.
I think that might be overdoing it slightly, but... Very well. So, open the court record first of all with E. Now, let's take a look at the fountain pen which was submitted as evidence most recently. If you press space to examine it further, that's all there is to it.
Yes, the initials RM. There they are, clearly engraved in the barrel.
By using WASD, you can look at a piece of evidence from all angles. You should have a good look at everything to make sure you haven't missed any clues.
Yes, I will. I just need to rotate the pen with WASD and watch closely for anything out of the ordinary then. Anything out of the ordinary? The logo? There's some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't a Yumai University one.
Must belong to some other organization, I suppose, a business of some kind. But that would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Rai.
Eh? That's the hint. I'm really stumped. What if I read the description of the evidence? There is a small amount of liquid still inside the ink reservoir. A blade from a wound could cause heavy bleeding. That's basic knowledge. In other words, there's no reason why the defendant would have tried to pull the knife. Why am I so stumped? Listen, I'm going to do this one more time. There's no blood or anything. I've done everything. I am so stuck. Okay. Ooh. I'm thinking maybe it's this stuff. Okay, process of elimination. This is a true statement. This is a true statement. This might be false. This is true. This is also true. It's this. The pen isn't the reason. The poison is the reason.
Objection!
Objection! No, there is one possibility. One very good reason why the defendant might have decided to withdraw the knife from the victim's wound. What?
Ha! The yokel has not only a poor grasp of the law, but also a poor loser. Tell us then, what possibility do you think you've identified?
It's here, in this newspaper article. An article about a deadly poison having been stolen from a laboratory at the Imperial Yumai unit.
Objection!
Objection! The victim perished from a stab wound. Poison has no relevance to the case.
But,
Prosecutor Aleks, you will let the defense speak. But a newspaper article, the court cannot rely on this kind of hearsay those wretched publications carry. Counsel for the defense. I am going to need some tangible basis for your claim. You will indicate to the court precisely what part of the newspaper article mentioned affirms your assertion. Your Excellency!
yes, of course. Thank you. I would never have done something to further endanger Miss Brett's life without just cause. The reason why the defendant pulled the knife from the victim's body is explained in the article where it says, it's either this or this. This, because it mentions poisoned lace blade, whereas this only mentions symptoms. The article reveals the following property about the poison in question. When the toxin enters the body on a knife laced with poison, it is rapidly absorbed and causes death in minutes. Are you suggesting if the knife used to attack Miss Brett had been laced with this very poison, it would explain why the defendant, Membami-san, would have withdrawn the blade as soon as possible? Yes, the truth is, it was an attempt to stop the poison from entering the victim's body. What?
Objection!
Objection! This is a complete and utter nonsense.
Not at all. The defendant withdrew the knife blade from the victim's body not to accelerate the woman's demise, but to save her life, and the prosecution cannot deny the possibility.
Have you not read the post-mortem report? The cause of death was a hemorrhage. The word poison appears nowhere in the document.
Well, that's...
That's because by acting quickly to remove the blade, the defendant prevented the poison from taking hold.
Objection!
Objection! Oh, please, this is clearly desperation. The weasel's lost, breaking of wind. Poison has nothing whatsoever to do with this case, as I believe the defense is well aware. We have no proof that the information in this wretched newspaper article is at all reliable anyway.
In that situation, what the student should have done is wait for medical assistance to arrive. But instead, he claims he suspected poisoning and took the potentially lethal decision to remove the blade. She must have had a strong reason for her suspicion then. Suspicions then, or the argument makes no sense.
Exactly. Well put, Inspector. On what grounds did she do it, yokel? Why did her eyes suspect the poison was involved? If you want grounds, I'll give you your grounds.
What?
You can't possibly. From your expression, Counsel, it would appear those are not empty words. But naturally, as you stand in this courtroom as a lawyer, you must be aware that words alone, empty or not, are of no value in our modern justice system. The court demands evidence. Yes, Your Excellency. I'm well aware of that. I've seen it many times, from my place at his side in the Old Bailey. In that case, Counsel, will you please present the proof to the court now? What evidence demonstrates a clear link between this case and the poison in the newspaper article? Take that!
Take that!
Take that! I would ask the court to refer to the notes section of the post-mortem report, which reads, extreme meiosis, pupil constriction was observed in the victim. Clearly, being a yokel with no knowledge of forensic science, I have no idea, so please, do tell me. Presumably, the fact this condition of the victim was noted in the post-mortem report means that it's an unusual symptom of death. Says, well...
Under normal circumstances, the pupils dilate when someone dies. If there was extreme constriction instead, that's most certainly unusual, yes.
What are you doing, you yokel detective? In the newspaper article, there is the following information about the stolen poison. Onset of symptoms occurs in minutes, ending with the acute contraction. Isn't it supposed to be constriction? Acute constriction of the pupils prior to death. What? If the defendant, upon seeing the victim stabbed in the back, happened to notice that the pupils of Miss Brett's eyes had constricted severely. Yes, as a medical research assistant, she would have suspected poison immediately, without doubt. Prosecutor Ouchie, I think you'll agree. This is very compelling evidence. You, yokel student and yokel professor. I believe the defense has expertly demonstrated a credible reason for the defendant's actions. No. Eugene Mikotoba. Yes, Your Excellency. I believe you are best placed here to confirm or deny the veracity of the defense counsel's argument. You will tell the court the truth about the details reported in this newspaper, please. It pains me to have to admit it, but I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? The toxin was being kept under lock and key in my laboratory, certainly, but I was unaware of any theft. Do you mean to tell the court that the reports of this theft are unfounded? No, Your Excellency. Without returning to the laboratory to investigate myself, I couldn't say. Listen to the bumbling academic. unaware of the theft of secret state research from his own workplace until he reads of it in the newspaper.
I take full responsibility for the incompetence of my supervision.
Father? It's a pitiful situation for a university professor. You should have more control over your students, rather than allowing them off on killing sprees.
That's totally unfounded.
None of this is Professor Mikotoba's fault. It's all my fault.
Right.
Barney-san, you stand accused here. Outbursts like this will not be tolerated. But it was me. I was the one who noticed that the poison we were developing had been stolen that day. What? So you knew? I'd been placed in charge of overseeing the project. Well, it was the only day the professor and Soseki-san were interviewed together. It was the day the professor and Soseki-san were interviewed together for the newspaper. That's when I noticed that some of the poison was missing. Just a tiny amount it was.
Why didn't you let me know immediately?
I was scared. The whole project was supposed to be confidential, but some of the toxin had somehow been taken. So, I decided I'd try to get it back before anyone else found out. Because I had a very good idea who the thief was.
The thief? Your own main?
Yes, of course. It was that dainty English woman.
Miss Giselle Brett.
That's why I decided to join the little group of people going to the seaside. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. She just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. I know it was you who stole the poison. Oh, well now, whatever do you mean? And then, she suddenly got to her feet, before falling to her knees in front of me and collapsing on the floor.
Was it a suicide?
That's when I saw the knife in her back. I couldn't understand what had just happened. And then, a moment later, I was seized with fear. The pupils of her eyes they'd shrunk to tiny pinpoints.
I don't believe it. In other words, you realized that the victim was suffering the effects of the stolen poison.
And the mind started racing. I hadn't seen anything past Miss Brett's lips while I'd been with her.
So the reporter's motive was the scoop?
Which left only one possible way for the poison to have entered her body. On the blade of the knife in her back.
And that train of thought is what spurred you on to withdraw the blade.
Yes, if the amount that had entered her bloodstream was small enough, she might still have a chance. That's what I hoped. Really, I'm so sorry for staying silent all this time.
Your attempt to hide the truth of what happened is not something that can be overlooked. However, I have duly noted the courage with which you have confessed in the end.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
It's barely perceptible, but I do think the balance has shifted a little here in this courtroom now.
Objection!
Objection! Your Excellency, do not be deceived. The victim just collapsed before your eyes, you say? Well, Membami-san, if that is the case, perhaps you could explain how Miss Brett came to be stabbed. Well, you have no answer, because the simple truth is that you stabbed the victim motivated by revenge.
Objection!
Objection! But you have no conclusive evidence to prove that assertion, do you? Oh, I have evidence, and it's very much conclusive. What's the prosecution counsel up to? It was brief, but he hesitated for a moment there. I'm almost sure of it.
He didn't want to show this evidence because it's gonna have a hole in it.
You will produce the aforementioned evidence at once, Prosecutor Ouchie. Perhaps some praise is due, young yokel student. What? I had imagined there would be no need for me to submit this evidence. But you've brought this upon yourself.
Because it's from the reporter's camera, and it has the same crack in the glass.
What the? Could a more damning shot exist? The cruelty in the air on that beach is almost palpable. This evidence, more than any other, reveals the true extent of the accused's murderous nature. For it shows the precise moment that Membami-san plunged her dagger into the victim's back. No, that's not true. No. I don't believe it. Ah.
Order, order, order. Counsel for the defense. Was it you who was responsible for that shrill scream that just pierced my courtroom?
Perhaps his voice is yet to break. These yokels are slow of mind and slow to mature. I'll show you who's slow to mature.
Careful now, Susato is starting to show her face here. It is often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and here we have an ample proof. The court will accept this extremely cogent photographic print as evidence.
Incriminating photograph has been entered into the court record. I can't believe he's had a photograph like this up his sleeve that entire time. It's such a stark image, I'm genuinely lost for words. Wait a minute, I don't understand. How did you... I mean, who took that photograph? Right. Objection. That's of no importance here. Stop trying to divert attention. Oh.
Objection!
Objection. That's an absurd thing to say. It's crucially important. Whoever took this photographic print was a witness to Miss Brett's death. The court must be allowed to hear this person's testimony. Ah!
I will uphold the defense's demand. The prosecution will reveal the identity of the person responsible for taking this photograph at once.
Well, I'm afraid I can't do that. Pardon? You see, this print arrived at the Imperial Police Bureau headquarters by express post yesterday. But there was nothing to indicate the sender's name or address. The provenance of the print is unknown.
Goodness!
Are we to understand then, Counsel, that in full knowledge of the fact this photograph has the murkiest of origins, you nevertheless believe it to be fit for submission as evidence into the Supreme Court?
When you first produced that print before, I noticed you hesitated for a brief moment. Because you knew that it wasn't completely reliable evidence, didn't you?
Silence, you yokel student and blabbering professor. What matters is the blatant truth that this print so eloquently expresses. But the defendant has already admitted to pulling the blade from the wound. Clearly, this isn't the moment that the knife was plunged into the victim's back, but the moment it was withdrawn. Don't waste this court's time with your ramblings.
Indeed, without knowledge of who produced this print, we have no means of verifying the claim. And the scene it captures is without doubt the most compelling evidence presented to the court. If the defense is unable to shed any further light on the matter, I believe the conclusion is clear.
Oh no!
Susato, this is the time for you to fight. If what you've established so far is true,
there can be no doubt. This photograph shows the moment that Rai withdrew the blade from the victim.
Yes, we just need to prove that somehow.
You will have plenty of time to rue your defeat on the slow train back to the provinces. And to rue the day you came up against Taketsuchi Aochi in a court of law.
If I can't determine who took this photograph, then the trial is going to come to an end. There must be a clue somewhere. There must be some way of working out who took it.
Well, Counsel.
Your Excellency, the burn in question is who took the photograph, and the truth is, I have the answer. This isn't about whether or I can or can't come up with the answer now. I simply have to. The identity of the person who took this dramatic photographic print is, I assure you, something the defense can and will reveal.
Well, no, you can't possibly. But as you so boldly claim that you can, please do enlighten us.
Unfortunately, I'm unable to present a name.
How utterly underwhelming. Do you really believe you could?
However, I'm able to present evidence. The defense has a piece of evidence that reveals important details about the photographer's identity.
Well,
Very well then, Counsel. Present your proof to the court. Which piece of evidence do you claim reveals something about the identity of the mystery photograph?
Take that.
Take that!
Take that.
What is that? The newspaper again? Raucous England returnees tell all.
It's not the headline that's relevant here, Your Excellency. It's the photograph. If you look at it closely, you'll notice that there are some white lines on the right side.
Ah, yes, indeed. They had already caught my eye as it happened.
ha, what of it? Saw a shadow of some kind, presumably, from the branches of a tree or the like.
There are no trees growing inside my laboratory at the university, I can assure you.
Now, if you look closely at this photograph,
Good gracious!
yes, exactly the same pattern of lines is present on this photograph too.
Objection!
Objection? Well, that tells us nothing. Ha! Yes, it's a shadow of some kind, definitely, from the branches of a tree.
There wouldn't be any trees growing inside a hut at the beach, Counsel.
What's quite remarkable about it is that the two patterns are absolutely identical. How could such an extraordinary similarity have transpired?
The curious matching pattern that appears on both photographic prints is as a result of... Obviously, it must be due to a problem with the camera used to take the photographs.
With the photographic device?
Yes, we can confidently say that the camera's lens must be scratched, and that the scratched lens causes unwanted lines to appear on every print taken with the device.
In short, the two photographs under consideration here were taken with the same camera.
But there must be hundreds of such camera devices here in the capital. It would be utterly impossible to identify the owner of this particular one.
Objection!
Objection! I think you're forgetting, Prosecutor Aochi, that one of the photographs featured in a newspaper article.
A newspaper? Ah!
That's right. The author of that article is the mystery witness to this crime.
What?
was that? Many, many. Oh. I have no idea what's going on out there.
Many, no.
No, I don't know.
I see why you were called a ruckus English returnee.
What are you yelling about? You've already testified.
It's many memo, I tell ya, many memo. Me, no. Soseki-san, what was that? Did you say many memo? Ever since I returned to Japan, a reporter from the Shoyu News has been hounding me, following my every move. A reporter by the name of Ray Ten Many Memo. Yes, hounding me from dawn till dusk. It's his pen as well. Ah, now that he mentions it. They secretly spy, snapshots, scribble stories, and scupper my privacy. He has ink on him. And he has the logo on him. Oh my god, it couldn't be any more perfect. Could that same reporter be? A camera on the left of him, a notebook on the right. There I am, stuck in the middle with writing many memo. Writing many memos. Writing many memos. Writing many memo.
So you're saying this picture was taken by...
By many memo? Yes, my lord, your excellency esquire.
Officer, find the newspaper reporter at once and bring him to my courtroom. We will adjourn for a short recess in the meantime.
Oh, yes, your excellency. As you say, your excellency.
And one more thing. I want this knife, the murder weapon, examined for traces of poison. You will solicit the assistance of the Imperial University's medical department for the task. Understood?
Many memo.
Oh no, it is the right way round. The courtroom is the right way round. Why did I think it was the wrong way round? I've gotten confused about this like 10 different times as I've played through the Ace Attorney games. But yeah, the defense is on the right of the judge, facing from the witness direction. Also, I missed the new jingle. Let's see, have I got time to finish? It's 10 o'clock. Yeah, of course I have. I think so anyway. Wait. Bum ba-dum, bum 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 bum.
I'm so sorry, Susato. I should have told you about the toxin.
Right.
You have a strong sense of responsibility, I know. That's why you decided to shoulder the burden alone.
No, that's not it at all. I I was scared of my failure coming to light, that's all. So I hoped to retrieve the substance from the Englishwoman before anyone found out. Before the trial started, you remember what you said, Susato? That you had no doubt in your mind about my innocence. That you'd stand by me to the last. I remember. And yet I didn't deserve your trust in me. I hid important details from you, Susato. I completely betrayed your faith in me. Hit me, Susato. I deserve it. No, in fact, throw me to the floor. No, that's too good for me as well. Drag me through the city streets. I'm no better, you know. Oh? Even though in my heart I knew that you pulled the knife blade from Miss Brett's back. There was just a brief moment when, in my mind, I doubted you. Susato, I'm sorry. After I stood here and promised you that I'd stand by you and always be on your side, I betrayed your faith in me too. And as such, I failed you as a lawyer. Oh, no, no.
I think this situation has taught both of you a valuable lesson. That placing your unbridled faith in another is no easy task.
Yes, Father, that fact has certainly struck home. Which is why I can see more clearly now. So, Rai. Yes? Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Oh, Susato. You know, you'll always be a gallant, dashing lawyer in my eyes now. Oh, Rai. I was so scared, you know. When it happened, I didn't know what was going on. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? And then a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Or collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back.
You can't stab yourself in the back like that.
It all happened right before my eyes. And you were the only people in the hut at the time? That's right. Just Miss Brett and myself. There was no one else. So I just don't understand how she could have possibly have been stabbed like that.
A great mystery indeed.
I still can't believe it happened. That's why I just couldn't bring myself to speak up. It will be alright. Whatever had happened, and whatever really went on in the sea that day, by the sea that day, I promise you that I'm gonna prove everything you've said you saw is true.
Spoken like a true Mikotoba. Now, I think we should discuss what's coming up in the trial, don't you? We don't have much time. We must make sure we have our facts in order.
Yes, I expect the poison is going to come under close scrutiny in the upcoming proceedings. The police should hopefully have identified it on the blade by now. Trouble is, it's a completely new laboratory synthesized blend of alkaloids. At least we don't have any way of testing for it. Oh, I see.
Yes, without this chemical reagent, it's impossible to detect the toxin.
Chemical reagent?
I sent a colleague of mine off with some earlier to deliver to police headquarters. I think perhaps you should have some as well, though, just in case.
Chemical reagent. It exists only in the lab.
What's the matter, Susato? You're suddenly very quiet.
It's this newspaper article.
Is there a discrepancy between the two photographs that maybe I'm not noticing? Can't see the feathers. There's already blood there, which I suppose makes sense. Pleasure indicator.
The label appears to be written in a foreign language that I don't know.
It's German, so your knowledge of English is going to be of little help here, I'm afraid.
Couldn't you have just written medicine on it in Japanese? Then we'd all be able to read it.
German is the international language of medicine, my dear. But yes, I can certainly see the merit in labeling the bottle in Japanese. Though I'm not sure medicine would be entirely appropriate.
True. $25.
It's in this newspaper article. Exclusive deadly poison stolen from Umai Medical Research Laboratory. I'm wondering how the information got out, given that it was a government secret. It was all the Englishwoman's doing. What? It was when the professor and Soseki-san were being interviewed at the laboratory. That so-called English lady swarmed in, and without any compunction said to Professor Mikotoba, "Oh, Professor, surely your guest would love to hear about your work on that substance there. Surely your guest would love to hear about your work on that substance there. Oh."
It put me in a very awkward position, to be frank. But Soseki-san's curiosity had been piqued, so I had little choice but to give him a cursory introduction.
So then, Soseki-san knew about the poison.
Yes, and it's highly likely that the reporter who was writing up the story about us would have caught a glimpse of this toxin too.
This Memo-san. By the way, did that reporter join all you when you went to the beach? Join you all when you went to the beach? Oh, no, I don't remember the reporter being there.
How are we gonna prove he was there? Oh, photograph.
Indeed, he shouldn't have been. I very much doubt anyone would have wanted him there.
Oh?
A known criminal had been given permission by the authorities to bathe at the seaside. Soseki-san pointed out that inviting a reporter might be problematic, so the man was sent back to his office.
Yet he obviously didn't go back. He secretly followed the party to the beach and took this very candid photograph. Then presumably he posted it anonymously to the police.
He's gonna say his camera was stolen or something, but he has it on him now. And also we have the pen to prove that he was there with the logo.
Ah,
Yes, that must be what happened. Counsel, we've just heard that the new witnesses now are ready to testify. The trial is about to resume. Please proceed to the courtroom at once. It's time to steel ourselves once again. Defense attorney Ryutaro Naruhodo.
yes. Rai has put her faith in me and told me everything. So I can't let her down. I have to prove that what she's telling the court is true. I have to prove that what really happened I have to prove what really happened that day.
How long have I been streaming for? An hour. Let's check the stream's okay. Yep. I'm gonna take a quick break. Alright, I'm gonna take a quick... Alright. I'm gonna make sure that the stream is okay. Before I go on. YouTube is telling me that the current stream bitrate for audio is wrong. Okay, no, it's working. I think so, anyway.
I hereby call this court to order as we reconvene to continue the trial of Ray Membani. Prosecutor Alchi, have you summoned the new witness?
Before I address that question, Your Excellency, I have some very important news to share.
Oh,
What news? And why does he look so happy about it? During the recess, with the collaboration of Professor Mikotoba's laboratory at my university,
There was no poison on the blade because the poison's on the pan.
the police re-examined the knife that was used to end Miss Giselle Brett's life.
excellent. I admire your rapid handling of the matter.
Oh, too kind, Your Excellency, too kind. I was merely carrying out your instructions, of course.
I had the reagent delivered to the police headquarters by rickshaw, so it would be there in good time.
By judging the man's swagger, I fear we might... Oh,
By judging the man's swagger, I fear we might need to brace ourselves for the inevitable.
and Council, what were the results? This dagger, which was so cruelly used to end the life of the victim, has no trace of poison anywhere along its blade. What? Are you sure about that? I would stake the reputation of the police on it.
Armed with the reagent, the test is extremely simple. He couldn't have made a mistake.
In short, the accused's feeble excuse earlier has been utterly destroyed. Now, the prosecution is ready to call the new witness.
Ah, the newspaper reporter who managed to capture a photograph of the crucial moment. Good. Very well, officer. Bring in the witness.
No trace of poison on the knife. But if that's really the case, how could the toxin have entered the victim's body? There's no blood on the pan. He always licks his pencil, but we don't have saliva tests in 1900. Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. I want to give him a different voice.
Writing many memo of show you news. I'm what people writing many memo of show you news. I'm what people like to call a journal.
What's a journal, Father? Do you know?
It's simply a contraction of journalist.
I'm there where the news breaks, putting the pen to paper and catching those scoops so they're the printing the next morning. They don't call me the hero of the Herald for nothing. I'm the nice guy of news.
Oh, so, it was you who took this photograph, was it?
Well, what do we have here?
I'm sorry.
Oh, brace yourselves, people. Many memos senses a scope in the offing. Female student up to foul play. Defended by curiously handsome young lawyer in Supreme Court. The readers will lap this up. Here we'll set it above the fold at 72 point in a 5-leg format for the morning edition.
Huh?
Right then, let's start with your name.
Oh, it's a Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Next, what made you want to become a lawyer?
I wanted to reform our country's legal system, I suppose.
Ryutaro has suddenly become very ambitious, I see.
I just borrowed Kazuma-sama's dream for a while. By the way, my name is Taketsuchi Aochi. That's Taketsuchi Aochi. The so-called dark horse of the Supreme Court. My objections strike fear into every defense lawyer's heart.
No, the readers won't buy that.
What? What?
Witness.
Yes?
What this court demands to know is whether or not you are responsible for the taking of this picture. It was delivered anonymously to the Imperial Police Bureau only yesterday.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a journo if I didn't click quick when presented with a scope like that now, would I? Sometimes stories call out to me, sometimes I have to chase them down, but either way you've got to be fast. Fast legs to run with and a fast hand to write with. It's no good if you don't note it down, I always say. That's what I call my many-memoism.
Many-memoism?
Ah yes, I remember your face. We met that day when you were interviewing myself and Suseki-san.
Yes, right. That was me. Many-memo again.
But you were supposed to be going back to the Shoyu News offices after our meeting.
Well, the scoop is, I didn't. Because that Englishwoman's words had piqued my journalistic interest.
Miss Brett's words?
The criminal, left to do as she pleases, just because she happens to be a British citizen. This horse dung. This country's judiciary is rotten to the core. The Supreme Court's rulings aren't worth the paper they're written on. The police are just imperial pawns.
Stay your tongue, young man. There are complex political issues at play.
Well, anyway, I quickly jotted down those words she said in my memo pad. Are you ready? I'll read it out. It's all here. Right, here goes.
I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast.
A serious criminal just going on some junket? The people need to know about this. That's why I decided to sneak after them. To get the woman's story so I could hammer her in the press.
Do you mean to say that you did indeed witness it firsthand? The grim scene portrayed in this photograph.
Oh yes, I saw it with my very own journo eyes. From start to finish, through the viewfinder of my trusty camera.
Thank you, many members, sir. You will give a formal testimony before the court. You will state exactly what it is that you witnessed on the events, witnessed of the events surrounding Miss Brett's death.
The beach hut was made of shoddy old reed screens, so there were plenty of gaps I could see inside through. The Englishwoman was sitting on a stool when the student girl came in and started arguing with her. Seconds later, the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the Englishwoman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back. My smouldering journo spirit burst into flames. Quick as a flash, I whipped out my camera ready to click. I pulled apart the weave of one of the screens and poked the lens through for the perfect shot.
Reed screens, you say?
Right, you can see them clearly enough in that great shot, I snapped. True. The hut walls were just screens made of coarsely woven reeds.
Yes, it allows the breeze to pass through and bring some relief from the summer heat.
And it was a breeze for me to poke my camera through and see the whole thing hotting up.
Ignoring for the time being the appalling invasion of privacy involved, did you witness everything that happened from the moment that the defendant entered the hut?
Oh yes, I saw it. I saw the whole thing from start to finish.
And you say you took the photograph through a gap in one of the screens.
Luckily for me, they were pretty shoddily woven. I pulled the reeds apart and thrust the lens of my camera through the gap, which means you could have also thrust the blade of a knife through the gap. Would I get away with it, or would I be seen? It was a gamble of the lifetime.
A tenacity of purpose that's considered admirable in a journalist, I suppose.
Run a whisk one day, run a scoop the next. That's many memoism in a nutshell.
At last, it would appear we have a genuine witness to this wicked crime. The evidence and testimony are extremely compelling. I believe we may be close to a verdict.
No. Wonderful news, Your Excellency. Wonderful.
Nevertheless, it cannot be denied that this testimony begs very one large question.
What question?
Exclusive news, a startling photograph, all the markings of an exceptional story for the reporter. Why then was the story never published?
Oh, that's right.
It seems clear to me that there are circumstances at play here that are yet to be understood.
Ah, more pathetic excuses.
Very well then, Counsel. Proceed with your cross-examination.
Yes, Your Excellency. There is more to this reporter than meets the eye. He's keeping something about this case very close to his chest.
Allegra?
No.
Hold it!
Hold it! What made you want to see what was happening inside the beach hut in the first place?
Call it journo instinct. Can you think of a better reason?
Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because as well as being a proven criminal, the person inside was a young woman.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Brace yourselves, people. He's painting the journo as a voyeur.
It's hardly slander, sir. You had a camera and you were taking pictures without the woman's knowledge.
No, you've got it all wrong, little student boy.
Sorry?
To my mind, all that was inside the hut was a scoop. Nothing more, nothing less. Scopes know no gender. Man or woman, it's all news. That's not even many memoism. It's basic journalism.
If only the courtroom was as indiscriminate.
Right, so it's all burned up. Can we move on?
Tell the court then, witness, what sight befell your eyes when you looked inside the hut?
A sight that vindicated my journo instinct, that's what. When I pulled back the reeds, I could see it all as clear as day. The Englishwoman was sitting on a stool when the student girl came in and started arguing with her.
Hold it!
Hold it. So you actually saw Membami-san entering the hut?
Yep, and she was raging like my journo spirit.
And the argument you mentioned, what was that about exactly?
You stole it. I didn't steal it. That kind of thing.
Talking about the poison, I suppose.
The student girl worked right up to the Englishwoman and really started laying into her. I mean, if she'd laid into her any more, there would have been eggs.
I get it.
The man should have been an author. His descriptive talents are wasted on journalism.
But the student's rantings fell on deaf ears, like a Japanese person listening to English for the first time.
You really ought to work on similes first, though, to be honest.
Anyway, the point is, the woman in the dock was mightily angry.
And her temper finally got the better of her, it seems. Dear me.
Which was the climactic moment that I caught on film. Seconds later, the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the Englishwoman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back.
Hold it!
Hold it. Do you swear before this court that you actually saw the precise moment when the stabbing took place?
Huh, the precise moment? I didn't see just that. I saw the whole hellish scene play out, from start to finish.
I have here a simple plan of the beach hut. Perhaps you could use it to explain to the court exactly what you witnessed.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out the whole reeds situation. I mean, there's this gap here, which seems pretty suspicious. Right, you are. It's all here in my memo pad. When I first peered into the hut, I'm sure that the Englishwoman was on this stool at the back of the hut here.
Yes, the accused's own testimony confirmed that. She just sat at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly, is what I have noted down.
It's my turn to testify now. Try not to interrupt. Then, in the next moment, as I was watching, the evil student girl entered the hut. After a while, the pair of them ended up in the middle of the hut, arguing furiously. The Englishwoman went for the student, and the girl dodged out of the way. And in a flash, plunged the knife into her adversary's back as the two passed each other. Maybe there's a problem with the dodging as a, like, trivial starting point.
Yes, you describe a grim crime indeed.
Never sugarcoat the truth. That's what many memoism says.
By the way, Memo-san, whilst you were watching that terrible scene unfold before your eyes through the gap in the screen, did it not occur to you to try and prevent the tragedy rather than capture it on film?
Journos have to be observers. We can't get involved. That's our raison d'etre.
So you didn't converse with Miss Brett at all?
Obviously not. An observer always remains on the outside looking in.
That's something to be proud of, is it?
Your Excellency, if I may. Yes, Professor. I think the witness' last, expertly phrased statement should perhaps be added to his formal testimony.
Father, what are you?
I will grant the defense's request. Many Memo-san, you will supplement your formal testimony with the aforementioned statement.
Well, nihilism is the foundation of many memoism, but I'll gladly prove that my words aren't meaningless.
He claims to have spied the whole affair from start to finish. If true, his testimony is devastating.
But it does seem as though he's holding something back, doesn't it?
If that's how you feel, I suggest that you trust your instincts and press him on everything he's said. As you've no doubt done many times before in your role as a judicial assistant.
Yes, I have. I've seen witnesses like this pressed often. I know exactly what to do.
Hold it!
The court is fully aware of your desire to capture the incident on film, I'm sure. But why then did you choose to post the photograph anonymously to the police?
I'm afraid I don't understand a word what's coming out of your mouth.
I'm asking why, as a journalist, you decided not to make a story out of the incident.
Think of me as a sculptor who makes art out of the sordid private details of other people's lives. But I never discuss my own personal life on principle. I mean, that's basic many memoism.
It's not something to boast about. No doubt your burning desire to see the truth exposed and justice done is what motivated you.
That's it, that's brilliant. My burning desire to see something or other exposed.
There has to be a good reason why he didn't think to write an article about what he saw, though.
He wanted to hide his presence and he is the killer.
By your own admission, you were outside the hut. How then did you manage to take the photograph?
Oh yes, that. I'm glad you asked.
Hold it!
Hold it. But the two women inside didn't notice.
Obviously not. If they had, where would I be right now? In jail, that's where.
Which you'd think would make you reflect on what you were doing.
No, with Jano's job is to collect little snippets of life as unobtrusively as possible. Leave nothing but footprints, take nothing but photos. Yes, that's spot on.
Did he just make that up? Point is, the witness risked life and limb to obtain this photograph. And this photograph reveals the whole truth. There is nothing more to be said.
Hold it!
Hold it. Really? You didn't set him foot inside the hut at all? Are you quite sure about that?
I think you might have the wrong impression of me. We're talking about a murder scene here. My nerves were stretched to breaking point already.
Oh, I see. You are scared. Maybe I did have the wrong impression of you, yes.
It was all I could do to stifle a scream and hold my hands steady enough to snap the shot.
You really should have summoned help before thinking of your camera.
Men in memoism and humanism don't always agree. Most of the time in those instances, men in memoism comes out on top. There's a sculptor of stories. Sometimes I have to be cruel for my art. Yes, that's spot on.
Surely he's making all this up.
You click. Oh, I've already read this. Okay, well, I've got the proof. It's the new statement.
Objection!
Objection! Many memo-san, until now I had firm belief that newspapers are in the business of uncovering and publishing the truth.
You're spot on there. The press doesn't lie, which is why I'm proud to wear the emblem of the Shoyu News on my arm. In a way, that's more many memoism.
Sadly though, it seems the journalists who write for those papers don't always share the same passion for the truth. Well, what are you suggesting with those recriminatory words, Counsel? Many memo-san, do you recognize this fountain pen?
Oh,
This pen was found at the scene of Miss Brett's death. In fact, the murdered victim was gripping it in her hand as she died.
what are you?
If you look at the barrel of the pen, you'll notice that its owner's initials are engraved there. RM. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Counsel. The initials of the accused, Ray Membami. Is it a coincidence, I wonder, that your initials are also RM? No. Right and many memo. RM.
That's all stung. Can't you see? One of the central tenets of many memoism is being a pencil user.
And yet, as the court will clearly be able to see, on your right hand, there is a very obvious blue ink stain.
It would appear that you must have rather carelessly left it somewhere recently. Your favorite fountain pen, that is.
Horsey all stung.
Many memo-san, is it not the case that before she died, you met with Giselle Brett in that beach hut?
Objection!
Objection! Why should we have to listen to this absurd nonsense? It's nothing but another excuse.
Exactly.
Show you knows will stand behind me all the way. I deny everything. There must be as many people with the initials RM as there are stars in the night sky. The defense has neither the time nor the inclination to count every star in the sky. And there's no need anyway, because this pen has more to tell. Yes, there is another clue. A clue that undeniably proves who its owner really is.
In that case, counsel, the defense will now show the court where this alleged clue is.
Of course, Your Excellency. Got it. The clue on this fountain pen that clearly reveals its owner's identity is... Got it. Got it! As well as the initials, there is also an emblem on this fountain pen. An emblem that you will of course recognize, Minimemo-san.
It's me. It's the emblem of Shoyu News.
In other words, the owner of this pen is an employee of the Shoyu News, whose initials are RM. Suddenly, the stars in the night sky don't seem so numerous, do they? Well, Minimemo-san, how do you respond? No! No!
Order, order. Explain yourself, witness.
So, this is how the mighty Supreme Court works, is it? Using coercive tactics to have well-meaning citizens reveal harmless secrets. I've used nothing but honest tactics. Alright then, fine. I won't try and hide it anymore. Yes, not long before that grim tragedy unfolded. I, as a Shoyu News reporter, on behalf of the public, conducted an interview with the Englishwoman. An interview? This theme is a bit weird. You never mentioned this before. When exactly was this? As I said, it was before that evil little student girl showed her face in the hut. Oh, it couldn't have lasted more than 2 or 3 minutes, that's all. It was just a brief exchange. But it came to nothing. As we many memories say, people don't pay their dues for unworthy news.
However insignificant you deem it to be, this court cannot overlook the meaning behind meeting between yourself and the victim. You will testify now under oath about the precise nature of this meeting and what transpired.
Got it, yes, alright, but on one condition. Condition? In all good conscience, I couldn't speak out all alone about this. You need to call back the earlier witness, Soseki Natsume-san. Soseki-san? Oh yes, according to my notes here, that man has a secret of his own. Embrace yourselves. It's not a harmless one, it's big. What? What? Many memorism states that one man's secret is every other man's front page story.
Very well, I will grant the witness's request in this instance. Officer, summon the earlier witness back to the stand.
So Seki-san, hiding something? I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined, so I left the hut without making a fuss. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witness coming running. The detective realised that the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question. But he didn't say anything about that in his testimony, which is why many memorism demands that I reveal it now.
You mean to say the victim?
The victim regained consciousness.
Oh, well,
And when she did, you decided to ask her a question.
that's, true, yes. He did, and that's not all. The woman gave him a very definite answer. An answer that incriminates the accused.
This is preposterous. Why am I only hearing about this now? Why didn't you mention this before, you yokel hack?
It wasn't even a conversation. Yes, I did pose Withering English Rose a question. I don't deny it. She can no longer speak. She was barely conscious even.
Counsel for the defense, I expect a thorough cross-examination to be conducted here. This court must and will know the truth.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter is claiming that Miss Brett implicated Rai somehow. What on earth could have happened in that hut?
What evidence haven't we used yet? The pan being empty? Maybe?
Hold it!
Hold it. You asked her for an interview, you say? Why didn't you mention it before?
Well, of course I did. I wanted to ask her about the incident she was involved with at the end of last year.
About the case in which Dr. John H. Wilson lost his life.
That's not the way I phrased it. Minimalism calls for straight talking. Why did you murder Dr. Wilson, is how I put it to her.
Yes, that sort of talking is as straight as a ruler.
Ask every question as if you're asking for a menu in a restaurant, I say. It's the best way. A veteran of the paper taught me that.
And how did Miss Brett answer?
With one simple phrase. Mystery is a woman's charm. Ooh, that told me, so I waltzed right out of there.
Really, something about that doesn't seem quite to fit together.
Leave every room as if you're waltzing in a dance hall, I say. It's the best way. A veteran of the paper taught me that. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witnesses coming running.
Hold it!
Hold it. That was very persistent of you, considering that Miss Brett had just turned you away.
Persistence wins the prize, and any memoist will tell you that. Let them think you've left, and then when they lower their guard, that's just when you swoop in for the scoop.
And the fruits of your labour are all too apparent in this photographic print. Though I'm sure the young yokel student would rather not be reminded of this damning evidence. Actually, it's thanks to that photographic print that we managed to identify this witness.
But now that you've found me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I've got nothing to hide.
I'm sure. Please do go ahead, witness. The court is eager to hear what you have to say.
Try to stop me. There's a story to tell here, and I'm going to tell it.
Hold it!
Hold it. And so Seki-san remained behind in the hut.
That's right, yep. Our author friend here. Was a blabbering wreck, shaking all over from his head to his toes, moustache twitching, eyes bulging. What do you expect?
Yo, you don't know the terrifying troubles that has haunted me while travelling abroad. Back behind baleful bars. They'll be coming for me, surely. That's all I could think, as I felt as though I were gasping for air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat.
Poor Soseki-san. His experiences in London have scarred him deeply.
As the world seemed to close in around me, I quietly recited a prayer to Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha. Eternal emptiness, empty eternity. The end is coming for me, surely.
No sutras are to resound in my courtroom, please.
Oh yeah, religion was banned. Oh yeah, that's why he's talking about humanism. And now we come to the crucial part. That's when it happened. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question.
Hold it!
Hold it. What question? What exactly did he say?
Well now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Writer Man? Oh,
Out with it, you yokel hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying English woman?
well, in truth, I've been catching crabs at the water's edge and building castles in the sand, you see.
Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose, even for a grown man.
But then all of a sudden, on the little beach hut, a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air.
Right.
I ran up to the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Soniger saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan. A moan from the dead Englishwoman. I nearly jumped out of my skin.
But what did you ask her, Soseki-san?
I asked her, who did this to you?
Don't protract this any longer. How did the woman respond?
She didn't. She said nothing in response. But
When in the sand, you will answer the questions asked of you unambiguously. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand that you amend your testimony.
I will. I will. Oh. Oh fuck, I missed the press. Damn it.
Poor Soseki-san has been fidgeting constantly in the sand next to Menimemo-san.
Yes, like a naughty child who's waiting for punishment from his parents. I'd rather remind you of you when you were younger.
I was like that.
Never mind that now. The question is, how far can we trust this reporter's account of events? We must focus our energies on gathering information, establishing facts.
Yes.
Hold it!
Hold it. So you tried to find out who the culprit was?
He who asks a question is a fool for a minute. He who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labelled as a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever.
However, you've indicated that the victim failed to respond. Is that correct?
Twice? I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. 1 minute. Holy shit, I've had a nightlight on for the past like 3 days. That's much better. I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. She was ignoring me because of my stupid moustache, because I'm Japanese.
Oh dear, Soseki-san has really developed a dislike for the English, it seems.
Having read the report on his time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at his xenophobia.
But the Englishwoman didn't ignore you at all, did she, Mr. Writer Man? Well, yes, all right. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. Oh shit. The victim didn't know herself, that's why.
Hold it!
Hold it. Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant. So Seki-san, is that really true?
It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the Englishwoman was sprawled on the floor before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her. And when I asked, "Who did this to you?" the Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point a trembling finger at the back of the hut. Because she was stabbed from behind throughout the back of the hut. Which was, it can't be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today. No, that's not what she meant.
No.
So Seki-san, why on earth did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony?
Fiddlesticks, I say.
This is not a British court of law. You will respond in Japanese.
Yes, of course. The Englishwoman did point a finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling, and she was trembling, and everything was a blur. And thinking about it, I felt as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. Somewhere at the back of the hut, where nobody was standing at all.
You mean that your memory of events and the direction in which the victim was pointing are both unclear?
Yes, that's it. Unclear. I'm very, very unclear.
Objection!
Objection! Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt. Yes, and the woman may barely have been conscious, and yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly. But there can be no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Because as the court can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction the victim was pointing. It is now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could possibly have committed this crime.
I am inclined to agree. In the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial.
No! No!
The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyers' hopes dashed. 92 point across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition.
This is a serious blow, Susato. Unless we're able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence, the judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over.
But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet.
Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need.
Rai gave us her account of how events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her bag.
The question really is, where's the poison? That's going to be the final piece of evidence, I think. Because I think... Okay, no, she definitely had the poison. Because she definitely got ingested... She definitely got afflicted with the poison because of her eyes. And it definitely wasn't on the knife.
How could Miss Brett have stabbed in the back in... how could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in a beach hut that was empty but for herself and Rye? Somewhere amid all the information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question.
I take it then that the defense has nothing further to add.
So, the gallant yokel student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on the matter.
This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim? I know how.
Objection!
Objection! Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being.
Oh, to what end, counsel?
The defense would like to present to the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Objection!
Objection! An alternative theory? Huh, none exists.
Objection!
Objection! There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed the crime. What? And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time by mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction. This is fiction, fantasy.
Very well. As you seem so sure of yourself, counsel, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryutaro Naruhodo,
Yes, Your Excellency.
you will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment when the victim was stabbed, where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed?
Take that! Naruhodo-san would never give up, and I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here.
Are you mad, counsel? You're suggesting that the culprit was outside the hut.
What?
Order, order, order.
The student lawyer Naruhodo-san, Esquire. That makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scope snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about, and I can swear to that. Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there is no way that he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut. Actually, Prosecutor Ouchie, there is a way. And in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting this is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed. You're bluffing. You're bluffing. For certain. You're bluffing, you yokel.
The defense's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the courts to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut?
It could be this crack, sure. Or it could be this. So it's either this or this. Maybe it's on the knife because I haven't examined it yet.
Ah, yes, this must be the victim's blood.
Oh dear, blood is never a pretty sight, is it? Having to fight the urge to run it under a hot tap and get it clean.
You've always been fastidious about cleanliness, haven't you?
I think this is something else, Father.
Maybe it's the depth of the wound? But I think it's this.
Take that!
Take that!
No, wrong.
Well, I've presented it now, but I haven't the first idea why I chose this piece of evidence.
Counsel, you're suggesting that this piece of evidence bears out your theory as to how the victim was stabbed.
It's something of a windfall, Your Excellency. I think the word you were looking for, Counsel, was downfall.
If your theory is correct, the knife that was thrust into Miss Brett's back from outside the hut, there should be a visible trace somewhere.
A trace? Yes, on the hut itself. Armed with that idea, I must look through the court record again. Your Excellency, the defense would like to present evidence.
Go ahead.
Trace is left on the hut. Well, it has to be this.
Take that!
Take that!
The original photographic print of the crime scene.
Yes, it's clearly visible. In this print, the trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach hut.
Objection!
Objection! Do you take us for fools? There's no hint of any such thing. I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is I'm referring to.
Counsel, once again I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where on this photographic print is the trace of the stabbing, which you claim took place from outside the hut?
Take that!
Take that! Look closely just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds. No, I can't. I can't see any such thing. It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls, as you'd expect. However, by parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them.
This is extraordinary.
Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. Oh. And of everyone present at the scene, there is only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right in many memo-san, it could only have been you.
Oh no!
Objection!
Objection! This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume, as part of this farcical scenario, that the assailant was a knife thrower?
Objection!
Objection! No, of course not. We're not. If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death, inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me, as if she knew she was untouchable. A stool? Have another look at the photograph. Wait, why is it the same telling the truth thing? I thought there was a different one for this game. The slit in the read screen. Would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on that stool.
My word, so in fact, the victim was...
killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the read screen. Ah! Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively, but then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut. Before the defendant, Membami-san's appalled eyes. Before the defendant, Membami-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Memo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge. This is absurd.
That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Membami-san, is innocent of the crime.
And then he denies it. Oh, thank goodness! I finally made him cave.
I must say, I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. The Ouchie clan can't. What of my growth of hope? It wasn't all an apparition. I can't accept this, I won't.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final verdict and...
Hold it! Hold it! Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals.
But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut, through the read screen walls.
And no one but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction.
So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now.
Irrelevant?
Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, the trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else.
And this is where he makes a mistake, right? What are you talking about?
Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. Because of the dirt you dug up.
What?
Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness.
What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course.
The poison?
Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that a deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it's been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett. Is that right?
That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign this particular poison was used.
I see, I see. So, presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed?
Ah.
Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes. If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood. But I don't know.
Ah, how refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely, it matters not a jot who stabbed whom in whose back with whose blade. Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison.
Objection!
Objection! But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Objection!
Objection! Ta-ha-ha-ha! Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your side assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever. Ugh.
So let me get this straight down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defence in this trial, turn out to be headline-making red herring. Turn out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right?
Well...
Bum, bum.
Order, order, order. But where does this leave us? How, in that case, did the poison enter the victim's body? There is an undeniably obvious answer to that. The lady most likely imbibed it.
You mean she drank it?
Have another look at the photograph here, as you can see. A bottle of carbonated water and glass has been knocked onto the sandy floor of the beach hut. The poison could have been slipped into either.
So somebody made Miss Bread drink it.
Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This'll make a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already.
Hold it!
Hold it. Established? What are you talking about?
Don't tell me you've forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it was you.
Me? What on earth does he mean?
Oh, let me capture those wide eyes. This is prime press fodder, this is.
It would seem that this trial is not yet destined to end after all. I hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony.
That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency.
You claim it to be impossible that you were the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain to the court in your testimony the basis upon which you made such a claim.
I'm a journo and I'm a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now, because that's many memories of...
For a brief moment, I thought I'd illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us?
Allegro time.
Complete innocence. Oh yes, I stabbed the Englishwoman, and it's that very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat. If the courts weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done. That's all you've got, dude.
So, you admitted then that everything happened as I described? That you are the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the read screen?
You can blame this miserable country of yours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back. I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. As someone who spends his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, it was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. That's right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after my own heart.
You're implicating Ray again.
She's the one who gave the poison to the Englishwoman and ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap, this journo is off the hook.
The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison herself, he need only wait for the. He need only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical.
That's right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Justice at last.
This is unbelievable. And after I've made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he going to get away with it now? Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stop looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel.
Very well then, counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial.
Does that mean there's going to be another one?
Yes, Your Excellency.
If the victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have had no reason to stab her. On the face of it, the logic sounds entirely reasonable.
But there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder.
We could think of a plausible explanation as to why he might have stabbed her, even after the poisoning. I feel sure that everything will drop into place. That's what we should be looking for.
Yes, I agree. And in order to do that, I must try to glean more information.
Hold it!
Hold it. So, you do admit that you had murderous intentions toward Miss Brett then?
Huh, the woman's very existence offended my sense of justice.
Your sense of... is claiming some sort of righteous indignation.
She was pure evil, a cold-blooded killer who committed murder right here on our empire's soil. But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance. So I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice. Put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That's what drove me to do it.
So, in summary, murderous intentions then?
Whatever you want to call it, the point is this. That Englishwoman was a blight, so I had to do what was right for society.
Yet a real wrong was done by the student girl in the dock, a crime for which she must pay.
Obviously, because the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all. That's the key statement.
Hold it!
Hold it! What exactly were they arguing about?
About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago, that's what. That student girl was laying into the Englishwoman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, Dr. John H. Wilson. professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikotoba, no less.
Right, but the Englishwoman was just jeered.
Her case was to be heard by the British consular court in Shanghai. However, there is little doubt that she would have simply been acquitted and sent back to her homeland as a free woman.
I was eating that student girl up inside, you could see. Oh, he was eating that student girl up inside, you could see. I really felt for her. Hold it.
Hold it! I can't. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Right. Young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whatever you feel like it.
No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen.
But this awful man is making all of this up. Susato, please. You have to make them listen.
Return to the dock at once, Minbami-san. We're in the middle of a cross-examination.
Hold it!
Hold it. Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. The filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great peeping Tom.
Whoa, take it easy there.
Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say. Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused's remarks.
I will grant the request of the defense.
But, Your Excellency...
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing this contravenous regular whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak.
Oh, thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison.
Hold it!
Hold it. And was that someone else you, Mr. Menimemo-san?
No comment.
Sorry?
It was the accused who sent the Englishwoman to hell. I just waved her off, that's all.
All right, yes, I got my hands a little dirty in the process, it's true.
But you listen to me. My blade was restless in the injustice of it all. The woman got what she deserved.
I say we should all applaud the young student girl for having the courage to rid the world of that menace. It hasn't been proven that the defendant did anything of the sort.
Sorry about that. Slip of the tongue.
Hold it!
Hold it. So you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim?
Obviously. That'd be like putting a belt on your trousers when you're already wearing braces like these.
The accused administered the poison, following which the witness stabbed the victim. An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. The crime rests on the accused's shoulders. That is how the law works, you see, yokel. Who knows, you may even learn something here today.
2 consecutive attempts on her life in the space of minutes. Quite a day for the victim.
Do something that evil, and you've got it coming. That's how the law works. The law of reckoning.
I mean, if we wanted to be a dirty lawyer right now, yeah. Look at this. Single stab wound. So we could argue that she actually died from the stab, not the poison. But, you know. Although then he would just argue back that she pulled out the blade, so she actually did most of the damage. I don't know.
Do something that evil, and you've got it coming. That's how the law works. The law of reckoning.
That's not the kind of law this court upholds.
You will reiterate why you were compelled to stab the victim, then, witness.
Hold it!
Hold it. The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the only one to I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson.
That's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult.
Oh, that's true. I pestered Professor Mikoto about until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. As I left, I was searched from top to tail.
Miss Brett had rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we'd been developing, you see. And since Soseki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse.
How did the journalist know that the poison had been stolen and write the article? I said this earlier.
Obviously, I gave nothing away other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance.
Oh, I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had some singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look my old enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that.
To find out if my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison. I told her that if there were to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government even. It'd be a complete disaster.
And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns?
She just curled those beautiful lips of hers, and she said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually.
Ah, yes. Many Memo-san. One small question, if you don't mind.
Oh, I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy?
Clearly you were outside the beach hut listening in while the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably then, it was you who wrote this article about what you'd heard. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yumai University, a research laboratory. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else.
Sorry. Don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, look at this. The entire article is almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Well, Many Memo-san.
As a journo, and as a citizen of a free country, I don't have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of many Memoism.
Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. So that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up with that stinking story about me arguing with her.
Shut up. My stories never stink. Look, whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the fact. Your Excellency, there's something I want to say. I want it to go on record.
Very well, you may amend your formal testimony.
The point is, if you poison someone, there'd be no reason to go and stab the person as well.
Hold it!
Hold it. Perhaps you doubted the efficacy of the poison and sought to make sure the victim would die.
That's horse dung.
What?
It would be like pouring pepper on your Chinese ramen before you'd even tasted it. Completely reckless. Although, it might surprise you to learn that I am a bit of an impetuous pepper pourer as it happens.
Pepper pourer? Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to have been a good reason for that.
If it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly he must have done it prior to Rai entering the hut.
Yes, that's undeniable.
But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation.
Sorry? What change?
The reporter overheard the conversation between Rai and the Englishwoman.
Oh, right. He heard how the poison is ingested.
Ah, yes, that's it. Yes, that's it. That's when Memo-san first found the exact nature of the poison he'd used. That could be the key here.
If the victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have had no reason to stab her.
Oh, shit. Okay. Here it comes, the final piece of evidence. And it obviously has to be on the final statement. Obviously he did it to pin it on the defendant. He learned about the symptoms. He wanted to hide the fact that it was the poison because it would probably be... I mean, there's no other evidence that fits, right?
Objection!
Objection! Well, I can think of one reason. What? But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information for this newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut? Of course he did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were in the laboratory together, all we were told is that it was a terrible toxin. And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison in Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Objection! Where are you going with this, counsel? Memo-san had made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it.
Oh. Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Membami-san entered the hut. Yes, very articulately put.
I don't get that. Are we saying if you would have seen her ingest the poison, you would have testified to it? Is that what we're saying?
When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Memo-san overheard some worrying information. Worrying information? What worrying information? The information under which he subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it wouldn't be readily obtained.
Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. The only possible place it could come from is my lab.
In Furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils? Yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects only to a handful of people.
Ah! Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membami-san being no exception.
Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties. In other words, someone like you, writing many memo.
Hold it. It's the old one. Why is it the old pursuing theme? Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
You! It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day. And it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that that was a terrible mistake. Because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was so traceable. As you listen in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learned of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake.
We need to use the thingy as evidence to prove where the poison was, I think.
Plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the read screen.
Objection!
Objection? But what good could that possibly do? Isn't it obvious, Counsel? Plan was to kill Miss Brent before the poison could take effect.
Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he?
Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would ever have suspected.
This is extraordinary.
Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use. Which he attempted to do by plunging the knife into the middle of the victim's back.
Order, order, order. The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward?
Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
Objection! Prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top nut, he is clinging to lost hope. Lost hope!
Correct. Okay, here comes the final showdown.
You pathetic, useless, fallen samurai. Fallen? What are you calling? Who are you calling fallen? My burgeoning. I don't need a counter-argument. My burgeoning growth is on the rise. I don't need a counter-argument. What are you talking about? It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say? Give it to the victim. Gave it to the victim, you say? Stabbed her, you say? Lots of fine theories.
But I don't need a counter-argument, because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it sound also plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts.
Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself.
I mean, what that professor said earlier in the trial. It's all here in my many memos, every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what Show You News is famous for. It's the power of the printed word.
Surely it will be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave.
How did he smuggle it out?
Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be difficult.
He hid the poison in the pen and then we used the antidote to... not the antidote, we used the indicator to detect the poison in the pen. Fucking wrecked. Oh, get wrecked, dude. Get wrecked. Get wrecked. Are you ready to get wrecked, dude? How's that then? Blowing the story wide open? See, I write in mini memo, a mere reporter from Show You Knows, couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory. I... But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. If that's the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here. What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? My point is this. There is one way that you, Memo-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
I have heard enough of the verbal conjecture. Oh, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question?
Take that! The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen.
A fountain pen? How can that possibly be relevant?
These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time, some 15 years ago now. Ah, I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy brush and nothing else, these newfangled pens are merely a fad. Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, obviously I love my fountain pen. Stuck up a oh. Remember how Cicadilla is pronounced, Alex? Garçon, son is a su. Suck up a soupçon of sumptuous ink, and one is awash with the words in a blink of an eye. Blink of an eye? That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later. What does all this talking of sucking up ink have? And just as it's possible to suck ink up the reservoir, it's also possible to eject it through the nib again, of course.
My word! Can this really be?
Well, Memo-san. When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir. Yo! More absurdity. That never happened. True, we've heard that there were procedures in place to prevent thefts like that from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places?
No, I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, it is quite startling, I must say.
I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by many Memo-san. So the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped?
Are you suggesting?
The natural conclusion is that in your haste to act, whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass.
Objection!
Objection! There could be any number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using his pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
Objection! No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink? What? As you can see for yourself, if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes to interview someone with nothing in his pen? No, the pen was dropped after the poison was filled in, that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass.
Witness, do you have anything to say in your defense?
So that's how our modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? I can always draw my babe back into the game. I have plenty in reserve. Ah! You claim I sucked up the poison into my pen? That's wild speculation, nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine, upstanding citizen with a trick like that, think again.
It looks as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish this matter. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether the witness did or did not steal this poison on the day in question. And therefore, it all depends on whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence.
Huh, no such evidence could possibly exist.
Objection!
Objection! Many Memo-san, this is how our modern justice system works.
What?
In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you.
Very well then, I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence.
This is it then. This will be the final piece of the puzzle. Do it. Let's do it. Have the evidence. The defense can prove, by means of this item, that it was possible that it was the witness's pen that was used to steal the poison. Take that!
Counsel, what is that bottle?
This bottle contains the unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question. Ah!
Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method.
Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison.
A reagent? What?
One drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Memo-san, is all that it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt.
No, you can't. I won't.
Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, The defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once.
This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to this, trying to hold its head as a civilized nation, but bang, it's been...
Susato, with me! I'm there!
Wrecked.
Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryutaro takedown. The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen.
So let's see his text. Trying to hold its head high as a civilized nation, but bowing its head to every foreign power's whim. I took up arms in the form of the mighty pen. It's mightier than the sword. I fought tirelessly on the battlefield of news, all in the name of justice and righteousness. Yes, many memoism is the paragon of justice. Many memo.
The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present that we had won.
When I saw it there in the lab, the poison, the devil got hold of me and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully.
And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen.
Yes, that's right.
Answer me one thing, Memo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose?
Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of, and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a journo like me to pass up.
Then, why did the Englishwoman end up dead?
I went into that hut intending to quiz her on her situation. That's all. As a reporter. A known killer, enjoying full freedom, evading justice by leaving the country. I told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed in my face.
Oh, what's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism? Really, you must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways, you ignorant plebeian.
What did you call me?
This country, with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, it's very depressing. You see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out and crawl back into the cave you came from.
That's when I remembered about the deadly poison that I happened to have in my pen at the time.
What a terrible tale.
In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible. But I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. I suppose it was my journo spirit getting all fired up. I swear, like, there isn't a single killer in this entire Great Ace Attorney series that's, like, genuinely, like, unforgivable. I guess Magnus McGill did, but...
I'd like to ask you something.
Yes?
You often talk about justice. But surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought.
There's no justice in the press. Sorry? After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what happened in that courtroom. Finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up. That's what it was. A cover-up? What do you mean?
I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful of what you say.
Oh, come on. Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're certainly not allowed to convict a foreign national. Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away to the sunset, into the sunset, a free woman. The only possible explanation is that, behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan. What sort of deal? I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up.
He came under pressure from the government, you mean?
If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're going to crush the free press, then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself? Let's not forget, Menimemo-san, that you committed murder yourself and tried to lay the blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than the Jazael brat. What? The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all. I suppose.
It would appear that we've reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Counsel for the defense, Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, yes. Sorry, Your Excellency. Just amusing in a manly way here.
It's almost unbelievable that this is your first appearance of the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits.
Oh, Naruhodo-san. Ryunosuke, you mean?
The way he handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one. It gives me hope that we are genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land.
That's very flattering, Your Excellency.
Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries.
Thank you.
So, Prosecutor Alchi, do you have any final thoughts?
Check the streams, okay? How long have I been going at this? 3 hours. Stream is all good.
Prosecutor Aoshi. Hi, Taketsuchi Aoshi of the Aoshi clan. Oh, sorry. Hi, Taketsuchi of the Aoshi clan have been bested by callow youth not once now, but twice. If there were any shred of my former self left, it has withered and died here today. Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it? The silence! Rather than living on in shame, I will end it all now with this blade. But that is the true path to Ouchiism. Ouchiism?
One hopes that this is the only way in which he'll be modelling himself after the witness. What?
Sprig of my topknot. The time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Taketsuchi.
Did that take a... I want a screenshot of this meme. Dun, 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 dun.
Ah!
Shoot a Kumi, you fucking meme lord.
Good riddance.
That was fantastic. That was a good meme.
Now, in regard to the defendant, Rai Membami-san,
Yes, Your Excellency.
I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you...
That was one of the best first cases of the franchise. I'm gonna be honest, last game, Great Ace Attorney 1's first case did drag on a bit. The bit with the stake was a bit much. But this first case is very good. Is it better than Defending Phoenix Wright of Mia? I'm not sure. Is it better than Turnabout Trump? I'm not sure. That's much harder to get. It's much harder to beat Turnabout Trump. And then the others, it's in the top 3. That was a fantastic first case. It didn't overstay its welcome, but it was very complex. It had just the right level of mystery, right? We had first witness testimony figuring out that she withdrew the blade. Then we had figuring out that there was poison. Then there was figuring out that there was this other witness. Then there was, yeah, it just worked. And he put up the right amount of bullshit to defend himself. Right? He didn't pull like some Giselle Brett crap of like basically just taking a shit on the court system. It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest though. It's all I can do to just stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility, such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? Susato! Susato! Thank you. Thank you so much. You were so dashing in there. Rai and Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh no, I think I'm gonna cry. It wasn't easy, but together we made it. I was on the verge of tears at the end too. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. Oh no, I can't take all the credit. It took courage for me to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Rai. Oh, it took courage for you to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Rai. So I would have to say that the congratulations belong to you. Susato, don't be so standoffish. Sorry. We're friends, equals, and the trial's over. So no more of this formal super humility nonsense. It's time to celebrate with swagger, to throw caution to the wind. Caution to the... what? I'm the great defense lawyer, Ryutaro Naruhodo, and I'm taking you out for a milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. I'll, think about it, Rai. At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that horrid man, and it felt so good. Yes, it was so satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anybody else we could throw together? Oh yeah.
I hope you're not looking at me, Rai.
Oh my goodness, no, of course not, of course not. Ah, There it is at last, her eyes, lovely smile.
You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense attorney Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Thank you, but I couldn't have done it without your help. Anyway, it's time to bid farewell to Ryutaro, I think. I shall miss him in a way, but it's back to Susato Mikotoba now. So, we'll never see him again then? What a terrible shame!
What?
What?
What is happening?
Ah, so Segi-san and Inspector Hosonaga. I do hope you've been keeping well.
Is that really you?
Yes, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reasons, I hope. But it's me, Susato Mikotoba.
I don't.
So dashing, so divine.
No. Doubly dashing, yes, and devilishly divine. Just look at you. I had no idea, Miss Usato San Esquires, that you locum student Naruhodo that you were locum student Naruhodo San Esquire's cousin. Astonishingly astounding, Ace Attorney.
Poor Soseki-san, so confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London. What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense at the Old Bailey, Soseki-san was free to return to Japan.
You can actually see the silhouettes of the lawyers.
And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author.
I'm stunned. It's a truly impressive disguise. Even I had no idea. And I'm a chief inspector at the police bureau who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less.
I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector.
Amazing. You're a woman of many faces, I see.
Just two, really. And this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, I hope. Oh, I'm not a patch on you, I'm not a patch on you, though, Inspector. The master of disguise.
Well, I am a professional, after all. Maybe his name is a pun about disguises? I don't know.
I do worry about Inspector Hosonaga sometimes. I really do. 9 months ago, when he appeared here at the Supreme Court to testify, he was undercover, disguised as the head waiter of a restaurant. And then on the steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as a sailor to keep us safe on the journey.
Ooh.
Though that didn't help you, did it, Kazuma-sama?
From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, now that the truth has been lost forever.
What do you mean?
The truth of her motive. I'm talking about the murder that the Englishwoman committed at the end of last year.
Oh yes, it was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it.
Dr. John H. Wilson, yes. The man I invited to Japan personally.
The mystery is, why did she kill him? I've already speculated on this, that it's an assassination plot, right? And now that the culprit is herself dead, we'll probably never know the answer.
Unless Naruhodo-san figures it out. On the voyage to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter with Mr. Herlock Sholmes, the great detective, I mean.
Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well, of course.
Oh, my arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name.
Well, according to the stories published about him in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes, a best friend. And that man was an exceptional doctor of medicine by the name of Dr. John H. Wilson. What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe that it's a coincidence. I think that the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. And if that's really true, Iris Wilson, then the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again.
As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born.
Yes, grandmother told me about it.
On returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yumei University. But I also serve another role, as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs.
Yes, I was aware of that as well.
In that case, I'm sure you understand that there are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you.
Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It's been 2 months since I now returned. When I left England, it was because of an urgent telegram I had arrived from Japan. It said that you'd collapsed with a high fever and that you were growing weaker by the day. What? Where did that news come from? That's what I'd like to know, because after that long sea voyage, I found you in fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain that you perceived might inconvenience me in some way?
Is there something in Great Britain that you perceived might inconvenience me in some way or harm me? He was worried about the assassination plot.
That's really the only explanation I can think of.
Dear me, do you reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Susato? I'm sorry, my dear, I simply can't.
Let me go. Oh, let me go!
Many Memo-san. So, one throw wasn't enough for you?
Oh, I've got one last thing to say before they take me away, Professor.
Me?
Oh, I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. In that visiting student's fate. Visiting student's fate? Giselle Brett. Visiting student? Giselle Brett, you mean? No, not her. The student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago.
Oh. What? Student of law? He must mean Kazuma-sama. What are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama?
We did Okay, last game, right? We were told that it was an accident and that the Russian ballerina girl didn't mean to kill him. Yet also, Hosonaga was in there to protect Kazuma-sama because they heard of an assassination plot against him. Maybe all along it wasn't an accident. I did mention it at the end of case 2. I thought, like, it seems odd that it was an accident. Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never...
Oof. Well, I didn't expect to find him in here. What were you officers playing at?
Terribly sorry, Your Excellency.
I was coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Eugen. And it's a good job I came by. Yes, thank you for dealing with him. and I'll be there shortly.
Oh, Your Excellency.
Ha 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 ha! The trial's over. I'm not your excellency anymore, merely your father's friend. Saishiro Jigoku.
These two are friends? That's a twist.
Merely your father's friend, Saishiro Jigoku.
This is the first time in Ace Attorney history that a judge has had a name.
And may I say that since I saw you last, you seem to have taken on a more dashing appearance. Susato.
Did you know all along, from the start of the trial?
A judge sees everything, Susato. I couldn't let you take the risk. If Saishiro here hadn't known that he'd recognized you. So I had a word in his ear beforehand, as an old friend. So, Saishiro, shall we? Yes, having ruled on that case, we have now various diplomatic issues to address.
Before you go, Father.
Sorry, my dear. We shall have no return to our earlier conversation. We shall have to return to our earlier conversation at a later date. But well done again, both of you. You did admirably.
Oh, thank you very much.
What did you think of my Saishiro sling, eh? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that. Ha 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 ha.
I don't know why out of the courtroom he has a much more intimidating voice, but...
Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Giselle Bread, about Dr. Wilson, and now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm going to have to bring this up with Father sometime, when nobody else is around.
Judicial Assistant, Mikoto-san, Squirus, could I have a word?
Oh, yes, of course, Soseki-san. What is it?
I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see? There's something I need to tell you. I believe that it may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England.
This I have to hear. Please, Soseki-san, tell me at once.
I will. As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I have no doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report about my experiences to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikotoba. He wanted to ask me all sorts of things about my report.
My father?
He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent the telegram to you, asking you to return to Japan.
What was it then, the particular part of that my father was interested in?
I don't really know exactly. But you do remember them. Those two terrible cases I was caught up in.
Of course, I can never forget.
Your father seemed to concern himself with the second case.
The second one? You mean the one Mr. Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in public? Which is why the only case involving you that has any member of the public... which is why the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of is the first.
Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what that dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that case somehow holds the key to all these curious unanswered questions. That horrific, hideous, heinous case. The case of the haunted lodgings.
Ooh. Very interesting. That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan. I thought that whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. Perhaps that was only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told. Wow. Amazing. This second
So,
game...
The mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better. How you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter. I met Soseki-san and we talked about that second case he was involved in. Father has said nothing to me, but I feel certain of it. That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see you again. Yours, Susato.
She called herself Susato rather than Mikotoba-san? Or maybe that's just because it's the English translation, I don't know. Or anything else. Dun 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 dun. I don't want to watch anymore. Okay, I can do this. Yeah. Wow, that was amazing. I really enjoyed that case. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. That was a 3.5 hour stream, was it? Yep, 3 hours, 23 minutes and 27 seconds. That